TSN Radio. It's all about what's next. Go to financialsurvivalnetwork.com and sign up for your free weekly newsletter. You'll also get 3 free reports. The Financial Survival Network. It's all about what's next.
Welcome. You're listening to the Financial Survival Network. It's Kerry, Lutz. And, well, we're not on the left side now. We're not on the right side. We are on the real side with Joe Messina, our good friend from the left coast, who has not taken complete leave of all of his senses yet, even though it's 2 milestones this weekend, Joe. I hope you've been keeping track of it. And 2 useless milestones, by the way. Number 1 is, of course, that annual ritual called daylight savings time, which just has such a profound impact on all of your lives out there. And number 2 is quantitative easing has started officially today in Europe. ECB buying up worthless sovereign debt with worthless fiat currency. And it's like second marriages, according to Dr. Johnson, triumph of hope over experience. And hey, it's just endemic and illustrative of our whole political system, right, Joe?
Oh, God. Well, the daylight savings time, yeah, that's an irritant. You know, I mean, just about the time your body gets used to losing that hour, then you gain the hour, and it just totally throws you off, right? And and what is that's so archaic? What did it? I mean, it was done for the farmers to give them more time to milk the cows and to take care of the cattle, correct?
I think so. And I think as Geronimo said, the white man is so dumb. He thinks that he can take a row off the bottom of the blanket and put it on the top, and he has a bigger blanket. And it's it's absurd. Why do we do this?
I'm with you. You know what? Leave it. Let us get used to it and move on. The rest of the world doesn't follow suit with us. I mean, even Arizona's smarter than we are. They don't do it either. You know. So yeah, you're right. And I wonder how much it actually cost. I wonder if somebody actually sat down and figured out the cost to the average company, to the average school district of having to reset all those clocks and reset the computers and everything else.
Well, the computers now, thank goodness, Joe, they do all this stuff on their own. Because the one thing you can do with computers is get them to adapt to the stupidity of man automatically. So the computers are good, but your watch, my watch didn't adapt. My car didn't adapt. So I'm looking at the car and I'm looking at my phone and I'm saying, there's something wrong here. There's a conflict. We got to resolve this conflict. And it's, daylight savings did it to me again. I'll never forget the time going to Hebrew school on Sunday. And this is before the age of digital insanity, Joe. And it was daylight savings. And, we sprang ahead, but my grandmother forgot to spring ahead. And everything is closed because we are there an hour early. And I wanted to just kill the woman so badly. I hated going enough as it already was, but we're there an hour earlier. Maybe we had fallen back and she didn't. I guess it was fall. And man, I'm just like having a meltdown and the things that you get upset over, right? But I think, look, there's 2 things that like somebody could run on and win, just meaningless things. But nowadays, nobody cares about anything in politics that have any substance. If you ran on abolishing the TSA and getting rid of daylight savings time, I don't think you would have to discuss any issues, Joe. Right?
I hate to say this. I got to burst your bubble for a second here. I just came back I went to CPAC out in D.C. a few weeks back, and I had absolutely no trouble. Matter of fact, on the flight out, I got one of those TSA passes. I didn't have to take off my shoes. Yeah.
No groping for you.
What?
No grope.
No. And then on the way back, I had to stop in that machine that, spins around and does an x-ray. Hopefully they'll pick up any kind of cancerous tumors I have or anything like that. But other than that, I mean, I really flew through everything. So I'm the 1% that didn't have any major issues going through TSA. But, I did see those faces of those that probably had, hey, on your European thing, this is the thing that you're the finance guy. I don't have a clue about money, or I'd have money in the bank. They gave in to the Greeks a few weeks ago and they said, we'll work with you. And, they're making their payments, or they're adjusting their payments around the revenue of the country. And not only that, but the Greeks are also reinstituting a lot of their social programs. I'm just thinking, wouldn't it be cheaper, easier, better just to throw them out of the EU and let them sink on their own?
Well, what they're doing is, it's kind of like if you defaulted on a loan, Joe, from the bank, and the bank didn't want to show it. So they said, look, what we're going to do, Joe, is for the next 4 months, we're going to loan you the money to make the payments. And then you're going to make the payments to us. And then we're going to pretend that you're not in default. But come that end of that 4 months, all hell's going to break loose if you haven't figured something out. But of course, they're not going to figure anything out because there's nothing that can be done. They're going to have to be tossed, or the debt's going to have to be forgiven. They've already forgiven a whole boatload of the debt. But then the problem is precedent. If you let the Greeks go, then you got to let everybody go. But yeah, it's absurd, because the whole thing that's gotten the world into the jam in the first place, Joe, is too much debt, too much social spending. Yep. Let's give everybody a pension at age 35 so that, hey, why should anybody have to work anymore? That's really a 4-letter word that we're better off not having to deal with, right?
Europe's always been like that, though. Haven't they always been, that attitude where they'll take care of you when you get older? You give them, 80% of your paycheck, and they'll subsidize where you live, what you eat, and all that other stuff. And look where it's got. They are in constant 24/7, economic crisis, are they not? Or am I drinking? Yeah.
Pretty much. I mean, and we're getting like that too here in the U.S. because why should you ask anybody to exert themselves? You might get hurt. Right.
Well, we have our lunatics here. You know about that, the American flag debacle, and it's happening in colleges across the country. But here it's a big deal in the University of Irvine, California at Irvine. Here they had a group, a committee, a student committee that decided they were going. Not only were they going to ban all flags from the campus, but they were especially wanted to ban the American flag because it had an oppressive feeling, that it stood for oppression and that kind of thing. And I'm thinking, these kids, these lunatics, are going to school on American soil with American taxpayer money, being protected by, American soldiers, American police. If they lost their, are we not teaching these kids? And I'm going to call them kids because I don't think young adults would be this much of a lunatic. But are we not teaching these kids what patriotism is? Are we not teaching these kids how the system works?
No,
I'm for it.
But there's also that would also break certain federal laws, Joe, banning the flag from campus, because in public squares you got to have an American flag. In educational, there's a whole host of laws in places where the American flag must be displayed. And if I'm not mistaken, college campuses, it's required by law to be prominently displayed on a flagpole, and they would lose funding. They'd get sued. You have to display it in a whole bunch of places, in auditoriums, in colleges. I mean, it's not just didn't just show up in these places. When they take federal funds, they got to display it. So they would have put as leftist a place as it might be, the University of California, in any campus, they would have put them on a collision course with the Department of Justice, and who knows what would have happened. So fortunately, cooler heads prevailed, and they said, well, we might agree with you, the intent of what you're doing, and we might live in a fascist state where slavery built it, and you didn't build it, and all that. Somebody said, "Yeah, this is just a fight we're just not ready to have," and better to back off.
Well the feds enforce federal law, right? I mean, So this is something. I mean, I don't think they care about this, but I just thought it was interesting that we're seeing more and more of this. We had another college recently that wanted to divest itself from all of its state's affiliations because the state did business with Israel. I'm thinking, are you guys both? You're at a state college. Mm-hmm. You divest from the state You have to move out. They own the property. How stupid can you be?
And the tuition is artificially low because the state's subsidizing it. Do you want to divest yourself of those subsidies too? I'm all for it because it'll lower my taxes. Guys, go ahead. I think this is a wonderful idea. And while you're at it, go get a job and pay full tuition. And those meal plans that you're on that are also subsidized, pay full boat for your food too, and your housing and all that.
No kidding.
Real estate taxes. Sure. Start paying real estate taxes at that college too. You guys are just. You didn't think that one through very well, did you?
I don't know much of what they. It's supposed to be college campuses are supposed to be a place of learning, a place of free thinking, open thought, a flow of ideas, if you would. I remember hearing all that mumbo jumbo when I was growing up.
They aren't flowing too good these days, Joe. I think there's an obstruction. Might be starting in the intestine.
It's liberal constipation.
Yeah,
is what
it's
I call
starting
it.
in the intestine, and it's definitely had an effect in the brain. And when we come back, you got so much on your site there that we got to cover the Selma March, so much of what's been going wrong here in the country, the economy, where you hide from these crazy people on the Financial Survival Network. We're talking with Joe Messina of all sorts of things, of The Real Side, right? TheRealSide.com.
FSN Radio. It's all about what's next.
Every week the show is growing. Would you like to be a part of it? Then go to clubfsn.com and help support us with $1, $2, $5, or $10 a month and get a host of premium content with newsletters dropped into your mailbox, free books, private audio clips, webinars, and much more. Then join clubfsn.com. If you want to get ahead of the trend and ensure your family's financial security before it's too late, go to clubfsn.com and sign up.
The Financial Survival Network. It's all about what's next.
In case you just joined us, we're talking with Joe Messina of TheRealSide.com, and all these crazy issues just seem to be splitting the country, slicing and dicing it, maybe even pureeing it into some soupy mixture that has no resemblance to what the country once was. And on TheRealSide.com, if you go there, Joe keeps a running commentary of what's going on. There was a march in Selma. The president was there. The New York Slimes was there, busy editing and revising history before it even became history. And a couple of people were there, significant people. George W. Bush, along with his lovely wife, Laura. Nobody's ever accused former President Bush of being a racist.
No.
A lot of other things, some of which are true, fiscally irresponsible. Hey, whatever you think of the guy, is he a racist, Joe?
Oh, listen, he's the only president, or even the black president, the current and former black President Clinton, he's the only president that has spent millions of dollars in Africa, to curb the tide of AIDS.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah, fighting AIDS. I mean, something that we didn't have to deal with, not our problem, not our country. And when he saw the plight of those people, he couldn't handle it, he said, and we had the resources to help out, and they've made major strides. So for a guy that, if they tried to accuse him of being racist, they'd have a hard time proving it. This current president, who calls himself a black president, he's done more to hurt the black community than any other or any group of presidents before him.
Right.
Just amazing to me. And what I loved about you talk about the New York Times, it was great that they had to cut out the president because, God forbid they show a white guy walking across the bridge who really cared about black people. We can't have that.
Hey,
and he happened to be a Republican. That made it even worse.
And go back to the good old days of the civil rights struggle. There were whites all over the place, lawyers fighting this battle. There were whites dying there right next to the blacks. It wasn't all
that's why I put the picture up I put up, which is I've got a white woman holding a sign right next to a black woman. You look at ultimately and obviously the black people had lost the most. They were beaten the worst, the whole nine yards. But there were whites there. There were other groups there that felt that this was a travesty, should not happen, and were fighting alongside them. And to say or to try to make it or try to paint it as a black-only issue that the whites weren't helping, I think that's disingenuous. And we've got to fight to keep that in the news, to keep that up front so people know it.
I think really great point that you're raising here. And you just can't forget, because just because it's history doesn't mean that it's open for revision. And speaking of history, open for revision, Hillary Clinton emails. All right, you work for the U.S. government. They give you a government-issued computer. They give you a government-issued email account, Joe. And then if you're Hillary Clinton, none of that applies to you, does it? You just go set up your own email account, your own shadow government, and you're in business.
You turn it down. You turn it down. You know, I found out that she never had. Now, it's one thing to say, okay, Hillary, here's your email address. And she goes, yeah. Just forward them all to this address. I'm not going to use that. She specifically told him not to create one. I don't need one. I don't want one.
Yeah.
You know, what does that say? She knew from day one that she was not going to be corralled, if you would, by all of this. She wasn't going to be, pulled into the situation. And and I've even got a clip of her years and years and years ago when she was a senator saying, "Hey, look, I don't use my email address here at the Senate. I use a different address, and because I don't need the hounds, the hackers, finding my emails and all that other stuff." So she's been hiding stuff for years. Why else would you do something like that?
Okay, so the next thing is, now we have to follow this, because evidently, and I'm shocked by this, and I know you are too.
I could hear.
But it seems that the Obamas and the Clintons don't like each other. And they don't.
No.
Aren't you shocked by this? I'm shocked. They just don't seem to really care for one another. And Obama would rather see the party implode in 2016. I think he'd rather see Jeb Bush get elected, or maybe Ted Cruz get elected. I don't think he cares who gets elected. It could be a Republican grand slam in 2016, as long as Hillary doesn't get elected, because, if she doesn't get the nomination, or if she's severely damaged and gets the nomination, meaning she has a ball and chain and she's handcuffed and has a 25-year sentence to prison while she's running for president, which could happen, that's okay with him. And I think all these leaks that have been coming out, the way she treats Secret Service agents, Ron Kessler's book clearly leaked her fees and honorariums for making 15-minute vacuous speeches about navel gazing while working for the government. Everything, it's all leaked here from the highest levels of government. They don't want her anywhere near the White House.
Well, I was going to say that to you. Don't you find that these leaks that came out from that liberal rag who love Clinton, the Clintons, I just find there's some things that I find curious, okay? And she, obviously, everybody knows that she is going to be, especially in the Democratic Party, she's going to be the person to beat, or she was going to be the person to beat. I mean, it was pretty much being handed to her. Isn't it interesting, though, how much this stuff is being leaked, all the stuff that they've known about for quite some time? All of a sudden, it's being leaked now. Why is it being leaked now? Why all this fuss right now? And I'm starting to think that, the hardcore left, and if you hear them, and they've been speaking for months, they're trying to recruit Elizabeth Warren. Yeah. The only way to get Elizabeth Warren to run is if you take Hillary down to almost an unwinnable scenario. And she's been there before.
Yeah.
She's been She's been exactly in this position before, and she lost.
And they know how to do it, right? They did it to her before. They can do it to her again. And now they got this guy O'Malley from Maryland, and he's got as much chance of winning as Lizzie, Pocahontas from Massachusetts. I mean, she was saying that she was part Cherokee Indian.
Yeah.
Lizzie Warren forever. And in the senatorial campaign against, what was his name? The Cosmo guy, it came out that not only was she not, but that she had told Harvard University, and they were showing her off as a minority. And I mean, it was just, it was just downright disgraceful, but she still got elected because it's the People's Republic of Massachusetts. But I don't want to go into history, but it's obvious. Isn't it so obvious what's happening here, Joe? And,
I think it is. You and I think it is, but I wonder how many other people are picking up on this. Seriously.
Right. Well, no, this is getting traction because it was on Saturday Night Live over the weekend. They got a Hillary impersonator that's got to make Hillary's skin crawl because A, she's better looking than Hillary. B, B, she's actually funny.
I'm better looking than Hillary.
Well, she's attractive looking woman. So you don't want somebody who's better looking than you doing comedy on you, Joe. Let's face it. Yeah. She's better looking. She's funny as hell. She does like a great, just a great power crazed, crazy woman. She's making you laugh about stuff that really is hard to make people laugh about, email accounts and Hillary's power crazed trip that she's been on, and then she's making little subtle things. Well, if I run for president, ha 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 ha. And it's hysterical watching this thing. And, that could do more damage to her than all the scandals that have ever come out. Because usually Saturday Night Live, when they've got somebody they like, they wait till they've been elected. They're not waiting on Hillary. Oof. Yeah. This is a perfect storm, Joe. And like we said, she didn't get elected last time because they know how to destroy her. This time, I'm not so gung-ho on her. I thought last time for sure she was going to get the nod. She didn't, which leads me to believe if she didn't get it last time and she was 8 years younger, how the hell is she going to get it this time, Joe?
They're working against her. I've never seen, think about how the mainstream media are towards the Clintons, how they've always treated them.
Yes.
And, now you're seeing them come out. Boxer came out with a comment just over the weekend, right? I mean, they're in trouble. I think they're in trouble. I think they know they're in trouble. I want to see how dirty he gets. I mean, because he can be pretty
Obama
animalistic in politics.
Obama?
Yeah, him too.
God.
Yeah. Well, think about there. You do. You have two alpha males fighting it out. This ought to be interesting. How they pull this together ought to be very interesting. Don't you think?
I think she's finished, and I think nobody's willing to admit it. I think it's a weekend at Bernie's. Bernie is gone. Bernie's dead. Everyone knows Bernie's dead, but nobody is willing to come out and say, Bernie's got no pulse. What do we do here? How do we break this to everyone that Bernie's gone? I think Hillary is gone, and I think this is completely a disaster of biblical proportions, and I think we're in trouble here, Joe. Well, we're not, but they are. I mean, but the interesting thing is going to be, who the heck did they get to replace her? Because the person doesn't have a chance. And that's the interesting thing, is that it shows something about this administration, about the way they treat their friends and their enemies and their party, that they have no regard for the party whatsoever. Because I don't care how many illegals you get to vote in the next election. If Hillary's not there, there is no plan B. There is no way that the replacement can be elected. But hey, Joe, do you have some time? We could go for another couple minutes after the break?
Yes, of course I do.
All right. So, hey, up next, we got to discuss a couple other things, the economy and what you do to secure yourself for what's ahead of us, because it ain't pretty on the Financial Survival Network.
FSN Radio. It's all about what's next.
Every week, the show is growing. Would you like to be a part of it? Then go to clubfsn.com and help support us with $1, $2, $5, or $10 a month and get a host of premium content with newsletters dropped into your mailbox, free books, private audio clips, webinars, and much more. Then join clubfsn.com. If you want to get ahead of the trend and ensure your family's financial security before it's too late, go to clubfsn.com and sign up.
The Financial Survival Network. It's all about what's next.
If you just joined us, we are talking with Joe Messina of therealside.com. And Joe, so much instability in the world, looking at the euro falling apart before our very eyes. I mean, it's just shocking when you think about it. The dollar, for those of you who watch the dollar index, up to 97 and change. It's been down as into the 70s. I mean, Joe, a year and a half ago, a couple of years ago, they're saying that the dollar is, and I was one of them who thought it was going to happen, that dollar is just going to collapse. And this isn't a sign that the dollar is doing so well. It's a sign that all the other currencies in the world are doing so poorly. And probably a good time to go to Europe right now if you can manage to dodge the riots, you know?
Well, I get these. I don't know if you get them too. I get these international living emails, and I watch them because I get a kick out of them. Buy in Belize.
Yeah, sure.
Buy a Greek island. Buy a this. Buy a that. It's just hilarious. Apparently, every dollar we have is really worth money in these places, even though it's worth nothing here. But I look at this stuff, and you're right. I rely on you financial guys to tell me, what's going on in the market, what's going on in the world as a whole. But Kerry, the reason we're so strong too is that because the government's propping this dollar up, aren't they? I mean, they're still buying stocks like crazy. They're still propping up the stock market. It sure as heck isn't because regulations have backed off and businesses are doing better. My understanding is that the job creation they talked about last week that they touted as a major league number was actually mostly part-time work and low-wage jobs. And apparently in the last 6 months, we've seen an increase of 3 cents on the average an hour for hourly wage workers. None of this makes sense to me. And I don't know why the average person is buying all of this.
Oh, they're not. I mean, look, the average person is just on a treadmill trying to stay in the same place, and they keep speeding up the treadmill, and you keep walking faster and faster, just trying to not trip over your own feet and wind up getting burned on that belt. If you ever fell on a treadmill and the belt's going really fast, man, you burn yourself. It hurts like hell. And that's your economic system right now. And if you fall on that belt, basically you wind up homeless and getting your EBT card and eating sushi at Whole Foods, because that's about all you can do once you fall off that belt. And that's what the system is like now. It's very unstable. And, the government's purpose here is to try to say, hey, happy days are here again. Everything is good. Look at those numbers. Unemployment's below 6%, but everybody stopped looking for work. So don't do it. And it's just indicative of the times that one of the best-selling books on Amazon right now is a guy that we have on the show regularly, Dr. Lawrence Kotlikoff. And the book is about how to get everything you can out of Social Security. It's not how to go out and start a business, how to go and start a business and become the best entrepreneur you can. It's how to go glom every last cent out of Social Security.
Wow.
I mean, isn't that a sign of the times? Right.
Well, and I see the emails coming across, that say, hey, depending on how you sign up for Social Security, you could be leaving 40% on the table. You could be leaving 60% on the table. And you're right. I haven't seen this many emails that have to do with how to beat the government for more money. I guess ever, really, or maybe I just wasn't paying attention before, but I've been doing this for almost 6 years now. So, we're actually being taught more and more how to take more and more from the government without actually working for it. It's just craziness. Yeah,
it's everybody looking for the free ride, and that's only going to go so far. You have to create value in a society. I think you know that, Joe. You do it in your show. I do it in mine. We try to create value. We try to show people that there are opportunities out there for you to make it without government handouts and to use your talents to create value for others. This free ride society can't last. It didn't work in Rome. It's never worked anywhere it's been tried. It isn't going to work here long term.
No, and you were talking about the economy earlier, and I was thinking to myself, Russia's in a world of hurt right now. China's in a world of hurt. They're seeing some real issues with money. Their economy has slowed down. The EU, it's just a constant mess. They just do this perception of smoke and mirrors to make it look like they fix things short term, but they're really just digging themselves a deeper hole with every time they make a play. And then you've got the United States, which of course you and I both agree that the government's propping up the stock market. This is all. I mean, if the government stopped buying tomorrow, if they just said, that's it, we're done at the end of the month, right? I mean, we would see soup lines at that point in time. I can't believe you'd see investment stop for a while. You'd see these big companies that were investing in themselves slow down or stop because there's an uncertainty there as well. You don't know where this, I know already the economy's hurt with not knowing where Obamacare is going to go and whether it's going to get fully implemented or not. Right. And then again, we look at the job market, go back a year. Just take every month for the last year. I think 10 of the 12 months have been, what do they call when they readjust the numbers after they come out?
Subject to revision, always.
Yeah. They revise the numbers when we're not paying attention anymore. They revised, the Q4 numbers for last year, and they're dismal. They went from 2.6 to 2.2. You look at all this stuff and you say to yourself, we're screwed. We're not coming back. We're maintaining. They should call it the misery index and just leave it there.
Yeah. Pretty much. I mean, it's all bad news when you get down to it. I mean, it's really what it's about. And what are you going to do here? I mean, how do you really survive and thrive in the new economy? It's so difficult to do when you feel like everything the government's doing is really against you and out there to hurt you. And I don't think that's an accident either, Joe.
No, I agree. I don't know what. I'm not a financial expert. I bring guys on the show for that, and I have friends of mine that quote unquote have money. And they don't have mega bucks, but they have money. And a lot of them have worked hard at paying off their houses. They pay off debt or what have you. They bury gold and silver in the backyard. That's what they do. And they tell me that's the best hope that they have in making things work, because they don't know what to do either. They really feel the same way, that when the government stops when the government stops propping up the economy, this thing's going to go for a nosedive. And I'm believing and hoping the next president is a Republican, and they're going to try to do what they can to turn this thing back around. And if they start pulling these programs, there'll be some suffering for a while. It'll come back, but there'll be some suffering for a while.
Yeah, well, we need to get back to free markets. Free markets are the only solution for what ails the country and for what ails individuals, but it requires everybody to take a bite of a very bad tasting sandwich, if you know what I'm saying here. And it ain't going to be pleasant, and nobody gets a free ride on this. Got to get rid of the corporate welfare and the individual welfare, phase out the individual welfare, screw the corporations, just get rid of them and let them go cold turkey. They get way more than the individuals get. And everybody got to pull your own weight. No more of this, the government's going to take care of you from cradle to grave, from womb to tomb. It just doesn't work. And just look at Europe right now, what's going on there. And it requires a major course correction that very few politicians really want to ever talk about it and really get to the bottom of what's going on here. And until you do, you can't really expect anything to change. It's just not going to. No hope change there, boy. No hope change.
There's a lot of people that are upset over, in Europe, and especially the Greeks. And let's just be fair. When you have a government, you have daddy and mommy supporting you all these years, and they tell you, we're going to take all this money from you. However, you'll never really have to worry about money. We'll feed you in your old age. We'll take care of you. You get free health insurance. You get free education. And then all of a sudden they turn around and go, that wasn't quite true.
Yeah. Sorry, we had our fingers crossed. And
you're 55 years old. You're going to have to change your way of thinking. You're going to have to this. You're going to have to take care of your own. You have to admit that's a shock to the system. We know it's the way it's supposed to be, but you can't make people dependent on you all those years and then look at them and go, hey, we were kidding. You're on your own.
Yeah. So, unfortunately, that's where we're at now. A lot of suffering going to take place no matter what happens. But if you face reality, the sooner you do it, the better off we're all going to be. Joe, tell us where to find you, where to find your shows, and how to connect with you.
Just head over to therealside.com. You get stations, times, email addresses. I got a poll up there. All kinds of fun stuff happening up on the website. And Kerry, thanks for having me on. Always a pleasure.
Hey, likewise. And can't get enough of your site, your show. Good luck, Joe. Talk with you again soon. Be well.
Yep, you too.
FSN Radio. It's all about what's next. Go to financialsurvivalnetwork.com and sign up for your free weekly newsletter. You'll also get 3 free reports. The Financial Survival Network. It's all about what's next.